In this episode of eCommerce 101, we're going to talk about fulfillment. So, if you're setting up an e-commerce store and you've got to fulfill your orders or how to get product to your customers. So, really, fulfillment is just the process of getting a product that you sold to your customer. That's what we call it, but you might think of it as shipping or delivery, that sort of thing. Fulfillment is really where your customer service game is won or lost. If you do a good job of getting that product to the customer, whether that's a easy to use curbside delivery, where they're not driving around the block 20 times, or it's a shipment that makes it on time, or it's a local delivery with super service where they deliver a kayak and take it off the top of the car and put it in the right place in your garage. All of those things can really win or lose the customer service game. It's also a great place to make enemies of customers if you are slow delivering or you mess up delivery or it's really hard for them to do curbside pickup. So it's important to think about fulfillment as a key part of this process. It's the same thing as having friendly people on the floor in your store when people walk in the door. Fulfillment really takes on that role. Um, you're also going to find probably that you have to make some compromises in fulfillment to really make your business work best. Particularly when you start thinking about things like shipping. There are lots of different ways to do shipping, and it's very possible to make a big headache for yourself. And so you really do have to accept that on some of your fulfillment operations, you're going to make money, and some you're going to lose money. And you just got to make sure that you've done the calculation and make sure that you're on the plus side when you're all done with it. There are really three key paths to fulfillment. One is local pickup or curbside pickup at your location. The second is local delivery. And the third is shipping. So let's start out and we'll talk about local pickup. So when you're doing local pickup, there are a few things you want to keep in mind because remember, your interface with your customer is your website now. And your website is hypothetically available 24 hours a day. But you want people to be able to order and do delivery or do their local pickup with you. And so you need to establish clear, regular hours for pickup. Don't make your customers guess, don't make them make special arrangements, and don't make them have to make an appointment with you to pick up anything they've ordered. Now, you might want to do special appointments for certain things, but you want to make sure that there's a predictable time that people can go to your shop and pick it up. Otherwise, they feel like it's a lot of extra effort to go and communicate with you to do the pickup, and they're going to choose somebody else. Um, Make sure when you're building in these services that you're building in prep time. You can't have this product ready immediately. You've got to package it up, particularly in times where you're plastic bagging or putting it out in a secure area, trying to avoid touch contact. So make sure you are building in prep time. A lot of systems will allow you to build in the prep time when you're doing this stuff. You also want to make sure that you establish a process for pickup that's easy to explain. If you've got a parking space that you want people to go to, if you've got labeled parking spaces, if you've got a place in the front of the store where you're putting people's bags with labels on them, all of those are ways that you can do this pickup for people so they understand what's happening and understand how to get pick up. You don't want them to have to wander around and figure out where to go to pick things up. Communication, as with everything, is key. You want to let your customers know when their product is ready for pickup. You want to try to send them out an email and let them know that they can come by. Make sure when you communicate with them, you tell them we're open on these hours so they don't end up coming at hours when you're closed and have to come back. Now, you will find that if you do local pickup, I know a lot of retailers have special agreements with certain product lines where they can't sell online and ship online. There may be exceptions, and you need to talk to your suppliers and see whether there are exceptions. There's a company called Locally that does this, where you can list that you have things available online, but people have to come to the store to pick it up. So that might be an exception if you have product lines that have restrictions on online sales. Another thing you need to think about is what happens if there's a split order. Let's say they order four things and somebody comes in and gets the last one before you've built out their order. What are you going to do? Are you going to set out two split orders and say, hey, come up, pick up part of your order now, pick up the rest later? And how are you going to deal with those out of stock items? You might want to consider, do you have a process for communicating back to people and saying, hey, we need to alter your order. What do you want us to do before you actually send out shipping? Again, that really helps with your customer service. It's not a killer if you run out of stock. People understand that that happens, but you've got to be really, really good about communicating to them, giving them options, and being very open to a refund on things if you do run out before you can deliver. People don't want you to just automatically substitute something because that really messes with their expectations. So just make sure you're communicating about that. Now, when we talk about local delivery, there's really two ways to approach this. One is you can use an outside service to do it. So there are lots of different companies doing, for instance, food delivery. There are some startups out there doing delivery of other retail items. Do make sure you understand the commissions that these people charge. They can be pretty significant. And so you need to make sure that you're still making money if you're doing local delivery. I mean, to be quite honest, if the commission is eating into your profit margin, you might be better off sticking with curbside pickup if you're trying to use a third party service. Now, you can decide to do your own delivery, but you need to make sure you have a very solid plan because you're venturing into a world that a lot of people are already dealing with, but you might not be used to. So, for instance, your regular old car insurance is not enough if you're driving for business. If you're in a wreck and you just have regular car insurance that you use to drive around town, that doesn't necessarily cover you driving for business. So you need to talk to your insurer and see what kind of coverages you need to be able to do driving if you're the one doing the driving. You also need to understand what kind of liability coverage you need for your employees if they're driving their own cars, or particularly if they're driving their own cars, because that's an area where you might not be used to. If you have company vehicles, you probably already got some of that insurance covered. You also need to understand whether your drivers are employees or 1099 contractors, because the implications of that have bearing on if there's an accident. Who's liable? Who's the one who ends up getting sued if something happens? So there is risk to local delivery because you've got employees out driving who might not be doing that regularly. Beyond the insurance and legal side of things, you need to make sure that you're setting reasonable delivery hours and that you're building ample lead time, not just to build the order out, but to deliver it. So if you're not used to delivering food, for instance, you might think a 20-minute lead time is fine because that's what you do in your restaurant. But in reality, you need that lead time plus a good 20, 25 minutes to drive the food wherever it's going to go and get it delivered. And even if you're doing retail and delivering stuff, packaging up that stuff takes time, and then sending the driver out to find where they need to go, giving them time to get lost or get caught in traffic. All of that needs to be kept in mind as you're doing delivery. Communication with your customer is a really key component of delivery. You don't want to waste your time or theirs by missed deliveries because you weren't communicating and saying we're going to be in such and such a place at such and such a time. So you want to make sure that that communication is going back and forth. Don't be scared to pick up the phone and call a customer and say, hey, we're coming to pick up now. Are you ready for us? Um, Now, one thing when people make these orders online, it's a real risk. The systems that you use, especially if you're using a base level out of the box e commerce system, they are not going to give you a way to define a delivery area. So it's very possible to inadvertently just build a delivery area that's way bigger than you think it would. I'll give you an example of a place in Virginia that if you do a 25-mile radius around the town in Virginia to do delivery, you could very easily be having to cross the Potomac River at a single bridge and make your way into Virginia. And that could add hours to the driving time. So you can't just do a 25-mile radius around a center point and necessarily get your delivery covered. A lot of e-commerce platforms have add-ons that you can add that allow you to define those local delivery services and use those. Um, Also, make sure on your online platform that you have a way to charge for the delivery because you probably don't want to do it for free. You need to make those expenses back, and you also need to be able to charge for tips. A lot of people are not wanting to do any touch when they're doing this stuff. So, handing a receipt over to write in a tip and write down things is not optimal. And so, if you can go ahead and take tips online, I think you'll find that that's a much better way to handle the delivery. Now let's talk about shipping. Shipping can get complicated really, really fast. And the reason for that is products are all sorts of different sizes and they're going all different sorts of places. And so you kind of have to throw your expectations out the window when you start thinking about shipping. You really do need to have an understanding of what your product lines are and how much it costs to ship different items. Now, when we start talking to people about shipping, there are really four key strategies that you can choose to do your shipping. So if you look at the breakdown, I think of them as free shipping, flat rate shipping, what I call semi-flat rate shipping, and calculated shipping. And I'll talk about all four of these. So for starters, free shipping is just what it sounds like. You order a product from someone and there's no extra charge to ship. Now, what most people do when they do free shipping is that price is built into their prices of their products. Obviously, they've got to cover their shipping expense, and it's not free. So you have to build that into your prices. So what you have to consider with free shipping is when you've added that into your price, does that make your prices go way over your competition or not? Um, Now, if you've got very unique to you product lines, things that you're selling that you can't find anywhere else, your prices have a whole lot more flexibility to be able to build free shipping in. And actually, one of the recommendations we often make is somebody who's producing their own product, whether that's soaps or custom peanut butter or that sort of thing, you've got a lot of leeway to do free shipping, and customers love free shipping. So if you can do it, it's great. If you have more commodity product that people could find in 30 or 40 different websites and they can see them in lots of different places, building in that free shipping to your prices might make you not as competitive as you'd like to be. Another thing you got to make sure of when you're doing free shipping is to protect yourself from international because you could really, really, really get hurt trying to ship things internationally. So you need to make sure your free shipping is only applying to US shipping and not going international. Once you start talking about going international, you really do need to build some sort of shipping expense into your product that you're charging the customer. Your next option is what I call flat rate shipping. And so flat rate shipping is one rate, ships everything. This works great if most of your products are around the same size and can be boxed up in roughly the same size boxes because you can make your shipping costs very predictable. If you've got a lot of super large or awkward sized products or a lot of range in your product sizes, flat rate shipping gets a little trickier because it's hard to arrive at a number that is high enough to pay for the big stuff and low enough not to scare people away from the small products. Now, the great thing about flat rate shipping is it does create a no surprise checkout experience. If people know what they're going to pay for shipping on everything in the store, they don't risk abandoning their cart when they hit that shipping calculator at the end. And that is a real risk with shipping, that they get to the end, they don't know what shipping is going to cost, it's really expensive, and they bail out. And it also helps keep your visible product prices more reasonable. If you do flat rate shipping, you're not building that shipping price into your product prices. So your prices on their face look a bit better than they would if you're trying to build in that free shipping to your pricing. Now, I think of a modified approach to shipping of semi-flat rate shipping is what I call it. And so the idea behind semi-flat rate shipping is that you do have a set of flat rates. And the example I usually give is if you go to the U.S. Postal Service, so go to the local post office, you can pick up priority mail boxes, and they come in like 3 or 4 different sizes, small, medium, large, and then there's some odd-sized larges. But if you go and pick up the small, medium, large, and then you go and look at your product mix, you can figure out some will go in small, some will go in medium, some will go in large. And what you can do is you can set a flat shipping rate for each of those sizes. And then what happens is you assign a shipping class to each of your products, and those products get that particular flat rate. And so what happens is it's not as predictable as regular flat rate shipping, but from your standpoint, it makes the inventory management a whole lot easier. You don't have to do a lot of weight calculation and that sort of thing to figure out how to ship. Now, you do have to decide in this model, you have to decide what to do if people order multiple products. Are you going to make it cumulative shipping? So if they order a small, a medium, and a large, are they going to pay a small shipping rate, a medium shipping rate, and a large shipping rate? Or do you say, you know what, I'm only going to charge them the large shipping rate, and I might take a bath on the smaller stuff because I'm able to not able to fit it in the box, or if I can fit everything in that big box, I'm going to save money. So again, this is the compromise area that we talked about before. You got to decide. You're going to make some money on some shipments, you're going to lose some money on others. Semi-flat rate works really well too if you happen to be a business that sells a lot of oddly shaped or really big items, but items that are predictable. So if you're a music store and you sell a lot of electric guitars are essentially the same size and roughly the same price to ship, no matter what model they are. Bicycles are the same way, unless it's a tandem bicycle. Bicycles roughly cost the same to ship because they're all the same size box, that sort of thing. So you can set a high flat rate that applies to every set of drums you sell, or every guitar you sell, or every bicycle you sell, or every lounge chair you sell. And you can use that semi-flat rate shipping to handle that stuff and still give yourself leeway to sell smaller accessories that aren't going to cost a lot to send out. Finally, there's what's called calculated shipping. So calculated shipping is when you put a plug-in or add-on into your e-commerce system from the shipping providers like UPS or the Postal Service or Federal Express, and it calculates the shipping. These calculators need you to have a weight, height, length, and width on all of your products in order to be able to do the calculation. They will break if somebody tries to buy a product that doesn't have those dimensions on it. And so you need to have all of those pieces built into your inventory. So that adds a bunch of work. It makes this calculated shipping much more complicated. Another thing is a lot of these shipping services have way more options than you realize to ship. If you look at UPS, they've got next day priority, and third day on top of a camel sort of shipping options. And so what happens is if you don't do some configuration when you plug in one of these things, your customer's faced with 30 different rates. And when they choose the right rate to ship, you have to ship it that way. And so what you got to do is some configuration on your side before you set this stuff up to make sure that you're only offering a subset of these shipping options. The other thing that we've found with these calculators is sometimes you get really high rates, and it's just a matter of the way the calculators work, and they're getting basically they're getting some of the higher rates than you might actually be charged. And so sometimes it can be off-putting. It's also a real mystery to the customer until they get to the checkout page how much shipping is going to cost. So you really only want to go with one of these calculators, in my opinion, if you've got a wide range of fairly large products that do cost quite a bit to ship, where it's really, really hard to nail down flat rates that you can assign to them. Now, on some platforms, it is possible to actually combine flat rates with calculated shipping. So you could calculate your shipping on your bigger stuff, and then on your smaller stuff, you could use your flat rate boxes. And even when you do that, what we found is the customer gets that flat rate option, but then they can do things like choose overnight and get some more flexibility in how they're shipping things. Um, I know that it sounds sort of complicated to choose this, but when you look at these four different approaches of free shipping, flat rate shipping, semi flat rate shipping, and calculated shipping, and then look at what kind of product you're selling, it starts making a whole lot more sense of which of these models makes sense to you. And remember, you can always change it. You just have to be really careful to watch your sales and watch what you're spending on shipping and make sure you're not catching yourself by not charging enough. That's all we have to talk about for fulfillment now. Make sure to check out our other videos to find out other aspects of e-commerce.